Hello and good evening and welcome to Kop'd. We're going to be discussing Liverpool's home draw today with Brighton and the Hove Albion. So first of all, I want to welcome Steve. How are we today, Steve? How are we feeling?
Do you know what? If we'd won, I'd have sung that song with the intro there, mate. We'd be coming to Scousers all over the world, mate. But do you know what? I can't be arsed after today. So maybe next time, mate. Yeah, feel a bit flat, a little bit flat, mate. But I'm sure as we talk about it, we'll get our head around what's going on today.
And welcome Dan as well. Dan, how are you today? You were at the game today, wasn't you?
Yes, I was there, mate. Yeah, I'm sound, mate. Yeah, difficult one to take, obviously, but similar to Steve, starting to comprehend it a little bit better now. Walking away from the ground today, I was gutted. To be fair, I was, because it felt like an opportunity, especially with City dropping points. But yeah, listen, we'll dissect it and we'll all be good after this.
Right. So Steve, I'm going to come to you first then. Was that 2 points dropped today or a point gained?
Both. It can be both. It can be both because prior to Cater going off, we're looking at 3 or 4 or 5. We were cutting through them with will. Cater goes off, we lose our shape. That midfield three we're playing doesn't work with Jones and Oxlade-Chamberlain in there because they just allow players to run off them totally. So it started off being, we looked like we might drop 2 points here. It ended up being actually we've got away with one because our man of the match has to be Alisson. And when you're saying that, you're actually admitting that we could have lost that game. So that's my rationale for saying to you a bit of both, mate.
And similar question to you. Was it a point gained for you, Dan, or was it a point gained for you, or was it 2 points lost?
Yeah, really similar answer, to be fair. I think no one would have took a draw before the start of the match. Let's have it right, So it has to be 2 points dropped in many respects, especially when you go 2-0 up inside 20 minutes. But at the same time, having watched the last probably hour of that game and certainly the second half, Brighton deserves to nick it. We didn't. So in the same respect, you have to say we probably got away with one.
I texted you, Steve, with about 20 minutes ago, might have even been less than, saying I thought that Brighton were going to nick it today. So before we dissect Liverpool's performance today, how well did Brighton play today, Steve?
First of all, big up Doug for tuning in. Thanks, mate. Thanks for the message. Stick with us and send us a few more. I don't think you can give Brighton enough credit for today. Certainly second half, tactically, they got it right. They knew where our weaknesses were in terms of our inability to compete in the middle of the park. And we were hanging on. That's why you texted me and said we might lose this one. And when Trossard scored and it was ruled out offside, I actually had that sinking feeling, mate, that, wow, we probably will lose this one. So, I'm a fan of Graham Potter, mate, and there were times when Brighton could have dispensed with the services as he tried to change the ethos and the mentality in the football club. And he's a great advert for sticking with people. Managers should get time. So if you're listening to Manchester United, don't sack Ollie ever, right? So that situation is that, yeah, Brighton were very good, mate. And they caused us a lot of problems. But I follow it up by saying if we don't lose Cater, we can see the third goal. So, for instance, if the Sadio one doesn't hit his arm and that goes in, there's no way back from 3-0 down at Anfield inside of sort of 20, 25 minutes. You're going to come out of there with blood on your hands, mate. You're going to get a good hiding. That and Cater going off were key points that Brighton were able to capitalise on. That says a lot about the way the manager sets up the team and the conversation he had in the dressing room at half-time. So all the plaudits that Graham Potter's getting, they're thoroughly deserved, mate.
So, Dan, Steve touched on it there with losing Cater. Before we talk about how important his loss was today, how important has Cater been to us so far this season, especially with the injury to Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, he's been really good, hasn't he? We've touched on him previously on the pod. He's been really impressive. But like Steve, I just want to say I was really impressed with Brighton today. I thought they were really brave playing the way they did. They could have easily got a hiding, and they didn't. They were brilliant. But yeah, in terms of us, Cater's been outstanding this season. He's been actually contributing to goals more so than he has done before. I don't think he contributed to a single goal last season in terms of assist or scoring himself, and he's got about 5 or 6 to his name already this year. So he has been really instrumental, and I was gutted for him when he came off today. He looked gutted himself, as I'm sure we've all seen. So, but Steve's dead right. It just completely made a mockery of our shape. We had midfields that all wanted to do the same thing in terms of be really busy and get about, and our structure and shape just got torn apart, and they were just able to bypass it far too easily. So Kate has never really been that important to us in many ways, but there's no doubt about it, he is right now.
Massively. Let's hope whatever injury that is today, he's back from it quickly, although it looks like a hamstring, which are never a week or two already. So, Steve, going back to losing Naby Keita, and you touched on it when I asked the first question. How did losing Naby affect us? And did Chamberlain, when he come on, did he do his job good enough, or was it just a bad midfield performance as one?
Oh, so you're asking now. So the thing with Naby is he presses, and a lot of people don't realise he's pressing, and he covers defensive ground, and a lot of people don't recognise he's doing that. If you look at the stats, he presses as much as anybody. His numbers are right up there alongside Bobby's in terms of knowing when to set traps and create triggers for winning the ball back. He plays in a position where no one wants to go with him, because he'll drop into a space where central defensive midfielders can't go to, or he'll play in a space where the centre-backs don't want to go to. He's really good on the half turn because of his balance, so he can get away from people really easily. He was key to today's game. We win that game comfortably if he stays on the pitch. Now, we've all spoken about this, you and I, for 12 months, and Dan in sort of more recent weeks as he's kind of joined us and spent some time with us on pods. We've been waiting 3 years for this guy to spark and show us what we paid £57 million for, and we pay him $100,000 a week for, and he's been starting to show it. You could see how disappointed he was when they told him he wouldn't be able to stay on. He was today. He was key to it for Liverpool. So when he went off, and we brought Ox on, Ox showed you his strengths with the cross for Sadio's goal. That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's what he gives you. When he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't give you a lot in terms of filling in spaces, playing on the stretch, going backwards. Curtis Jones is much the same. So what you've got today is you've got a midfield three against a cohesive midfield unit, which is Brighton's midfield unit. They all know their job and they do it well. And you've got one genuinely defensive-minded midfielder in Jordan Henderson. And in the second half, it was like the Alamo at times. It was like him versus their entire midfield. Now, it would be wrong for me to sit here and say, well, Jones is crap and Ox is crap and blah, blah, negative, like you're seeing all over Twitter, right? You're asking them to do something that doesn't fit their style of play. You wouldn't bring Ox on to play in a double pivot. You wouldn't bring Ox on to play as a defensive midfielder in a midfield three. But such are the bodies that we've got the problems with at the moment. You kind of have to. There would be an argument today to take Jones off, bring Tsimikas on, put Robertson at left midfield and put Tsimikas at left back, and be more orthodox four across the middle, because they would have tied down the left-hand side. But in saying that, all of the danger came down the other side, down the right-hand side. So it would have given us, it probably wouldn't have solved it, but it would have got somebody out of the midfield who wasn't combative in terms of Jones. Jones today looked really slow. He tried to turn away from people with the ball. He does this pirouette thing where he goes around in a 360 and tries to change direction. Basuma just took the ball off him every time he tried to do that. What Basuma gave us today is a prelude into what that guy could do sitting in our midfield, and it's not really the first time. Yeah. Last season, he came and bullied all three of them. He bullied every one of our midfielders last season. That guy's got everything that a midfielder would want in Liverpool's midfield in terms of pace, power, composure, good on the ball, can see a pass. If he's £60 million, it's £60 million well spent to add to a Liverpool midfield. So I'm not negative in regards to midfield today, because square pegs and round holes through no fault of their own, and it is what it is, and that's why we didn't win the game, because we lacked balance. We had no balance at all in midfield today, and they had loads of it. So I'm not going to sit here and go on a witch hunt for Oxlade-Chamberlain. His assist was brilliant. We've pushed our back four so far up the pitch, we're strangling the space in the opponent's half. and Oxlade-Chamberlain wants to pick up the ball and run with it. And whenever he picks up the ball and turns around, there's somebody in the way because we're compressed. We've got 20 players in one half. So that's changed. Heavy metal football was great for him because we played on the stretch going forward as well as in defence. But we don't play that way anymore. And I'm more convinced now than ever that this summer Oxlade-Chamberlain, for the good of his own career, probably needs a move.
We're talking about our midfield there and talking about how Jordan Henderson was our only defensive midfielder, Dan. Now, we discussed it just before we went on air. To me, Jordan Henderson looked like a guy who'd been given a defensive midfield role today, who didn't want to play the defensive role, especially in the second half. There were times when he vacated that space, and which caused us a problem. Did you see it the same way, Dan?
100%, yeah. I see Jordan Henderson as more of a firefighter in many ways. He wants to get involved in situations all the time to impact the game. And that's great because he's got this, abundance of energy and he's absolutely tireless in midfield. And that's almost his best asset, in my opinion. Obviously, he scores that wonderful goal today and we've all seen his quality at times, that pass last week, for instance. But for me, his work rate and what he can bring in that aspect is his best quality. But you can't do that from the six because you're out of position too often. If you're the man trying to go and put out fires before they've started, if that gets beaten, which it did, because like Steve said, Basuma was outstanding today, absolutely outstanding. And he could easily pick off that first pass, and then they're away. And Henderson's not there to do what Fabinho does so well. Fabinho will sit and wait in front of the back two, and he'll pick off the problem when it gets to him. He'll win the ball at that point. He'll win the ball when it's right. Henderson's trying to be the busy man and be what he is so brilliantly a little bit further up the field and be everywhere and just do everything for us. You can't do that from six because if you get beat, there's a problem, and it happened. That's what I mean when I say they bypass our midfield because they were all trying so hard to win the ball back high. Once they didn't, they were at our defence time and time again.
Yeah, it was a bit scary, that. What did you think, Steve, with the decision to go with Canate instead of Matip today? Do you think that affected the performance, or was it just simply Keita going off?
Wouldn't have made any difference if Matip had played today. The second goal, because of what's happened in midfield, Canate goes to try and engage the ball higher up the field than really he should. Very much like Nat Phillips did against Real Madrid in the quarter-final of the Champions League last year. And he doesn't win the ball. So straight away, Van Dijk's got to come across and Robertson's got to come across. Then you've got a problem because they've got more numbers. I don't know whether Matip's carrying something at the moment in terms of a little niggle. And in his last two games, it wasn't the assured defender that we'd seen sort of for the 6 games previous. I think those two are going to share a fair bit. And I think Joe Gomez has got to sort of look inside himself and find some form from somewhere because when he has played, he doesn't look particularly assured to me. I don't think whoever played in central defence today makes a difference. And I'll keep going back to it because it is what it is. That after 20 minutes, we basically played without a midfield. In terms of our system, we basically played without a midfield. We'd have been better trying to set up with a mid-block and trying to play counter-attacking football because we just couldn't keep them out with the guys in midfield, and we didn't switch it, we didn't change it. And when the change happens, it's 2-0, and Klopp's probably thinking we've still got enough to get through this game. We're playing on the front foot, but they grew into the game, and in the second half they bossed it. Wouldn't have made any difference. You could have brought Alan Hansen back in his prime and sat him alongside Virgil van Dijk, mate, and that midfield would have killed the pair of them.
So in hindsight then, Dan, when Keita goes off, what do you do as a Liverpool manager? Do you go for the third goal, or do you try and manage the game and go, listen, sit back a little bit here now, let's try and keep it 2-0 until half-time?
I think it was too early to be doing that, if I'm honest with you. I think going for the throat and trying to kill it, which we said off air as well, and Steve touched on it since he's come on. That third goal, the Manny one, was disallowed. That makes it 3-0, and that probably kills the game. And I think Graham Potter's alluded to something similar in the aftermath. He said if it goes to 3-0 at Anfield, you can pretty much write it off. But at 2-0, they stay in it. And I think Klopp's hands are pretty much tied. And as much as we can all see what went wrong today in terms of the midfield, and, you say there, we possibly could have sat on it and shored it up. I don't know how we do that with the personnel that was out there. And I don't know how he could have done that with the personnel on the bench, because you look who's on the bench, there's nobody. I thought Tyler Morton was really good against Preston in midweek. Defensive midfielder, I thought he played really well. This is a different ball game altogether. This is Brighton, and fair play to Brighton. They've had a very good start of the season, and they were very good today. Tyler Morton could get swallowed up this afternoon, and that's no good for him or Liverpool. That's no good for anyone. So it's a really difficult one, and you can't sort of point any blame at anyone in particular, because it's just the cards we were dealt with today, unfortunately. Personnel wasn't there. I had Fabinho sat in front of me watching the game, and you think if you were out there, different story. Thiago's up in the crowd somewhere else. The personnel simply weren't available to do what we would normally do in that footy match, and it's just the way it is.
Mm.
Are we suffering, Steve, from not bringing in a midfielder in the summer?
Yeah, I think you knew I was going to say that. I think at some point it probably will be the summer, because we don't sign players because they're available in January anyway. We just don't do that. I think in the summer there'll have to be a sort of a deep dive into the squad and have a look at people's availability, because, you know, the two guys who are vying to try and get a starting place in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Katie, you can't rely on them to be available. So the way I see it, there's four centre midfielders, the usual suspects in Thiago, Henderson and Fabinho are in the box seat. Katie's trying to win the shirt off one of those. Then you've got the players on the periphery of the squad, which is Curtis Jones and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and whoever doesn't make it out of the four misses out because we only played three. So potentially Katie or Thiago. You have to have a look at those squads, and you have to say, Thiago's never done 30 games a season in his entire career. So why was he going to start at 30 years old in arguably the most physical and intense league in the world anyway? Not going to happen. Oxlade-Chamberlain was flying before his injury against Rome. That was a really serious injury. Wasn't like a standard ACL tear. It was really bad. And then you've got Keita, who you know, we said before, got attacked by a blade of grass and went missing for a month. So you have to be careful with these players. They're not available. If you're going to mount a sustainable challenge for a league title, and you're going to challenge for the Champions League, you can't have situations like today where you're looking in your midfield and you're thinking, you literally could take Curtis Jones off and it wouldn't be any different, because he didn't offer anything in the second half at all. And that's part of his development, to play those games and to sit down with Linders and Klopp and the coaching staff and them say, well, in that moment, you needed to be there. And that's a lesson you need to learn. So these games are huge for him. I'm still on the fence whether he's got a sort of a long-term Liverpool career, because certainly in the system we're playing at the moment, he just doesn't get it. And it might be that it doesn't suit him. Doesn't suit everybody to play every system, does it? You could bring Paul Pogba into Liverpool Football Club and he wouldn't work in our system. So it doesn't work for everybody. It's difficult. It's a difficult one. So, yeah, that's where I find it. We've got to do a review of the squad, and we've got to look at bringing in. We've talked about Basuma already. That for me is a must. That guy was immense today. He was head and shoulders, just the power of the guy. It's kind of like got Steven Gerrard's physical presence on the pitch in terms of pace and power. And he's a unit as well. You know, he's going to give you that. Imagine him and Fabinho on a double pivot with a really creative player in front of them. Be immense, wouldn't it? But, you know, that's all ifs, buts and ands, isn't it? But, no, we've got to look at this, because we were caught short today by lack of numbers in the squad. And it was very, very alarming to see how easy that Brighton got at us. If we were playing Chelsea or Manchester City today, we do lose that game. Mm-hmm. So it's something that needs to be addressed, and it won't happen in January.
Short term, Dan, if they're the players you've got available and they don't fit the system, do we need to change our system until them players can come back? I mean, I know it seems a bit dramatic, but like West Ham next week, and we've only got Henderson, Chamberlain and Curtis Jones available and Morton on the bench. What do we do? Because let's be honest, West Ham are a pretty decent team and they could get into our midfield next week. So what do we do? Do we change the way we play?
if I'm being honest, I mean, I'm hopeful we've got at least one of Fabinho and Thiago back next Sunday. But if they weren't, and that was the case, I would honestly, after watching that today, I'd go to 4 forwards. I'd play all 4 with them, which is something we've done in the past. Simply because I'd almost be tempted to say attack is the best form of defence. And it's a really difficult one because West Ham are, again, another properly decent side with Rice and Souček, who are 2 outstanding sort of centre midfielders who are going to work really well as a partnership and have done for a long time now. But we've seen that midfield today, and I don't think you can transform that midfield in a week, if I'm honest. I don't think you can teach Curtis Jones or Oxlade-Chamberlain to play those roles that quickly. I just don't see that happening. I don't see how that's possible. So, for me, I would be tempted. I'd probably go with Henderson. I'd probably go Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain, to be honest, to be your legs in midfield, and then Firmino to be the more advanced one, which is such a bold shout. And I really hope it doesn't come to that because, like I say, I really hope one of the other 2 are available. But I just don't see how we can go with that midfield 3 again today after watching it for just over an hour this afternoon. I really struggle to see how it's going to work because it just doesn't. And in my opinion, we're playing as good as Brighton were. I think West Ham are a slightly better side. And I think Souček and Rice are a slightly better midfield than Bissouma and Mbeumo today. So it would be really concerning. And the only way I could possibly think of us dealing with it with who's available is by playing all 4 forwards.
Same question to you then, Steve. What would you do if the midfielders we've got available next week are the same ones we had today, minus Keita? What team would you pick next week?
I'd be on eBay buying dodgy COVID tests, mate, and getting the game called off. You can't change the system because he's taken him 5 years to get that system into the club. You can't change it in a week. Dan's exactly right. It's a difficult one, and I totally agree. If there's any chance that Thiago's fit, he's got to play at West Ham. I would leave him if he's fit and you're worried about him playing 2 games in the week. I'd leave him out midweek against Atletico.
Yeah, I agree.
We will get through that group in the next 3 games. We don't need to win it on Wednesday night, although it would be good to, because we could do some serious damage to Atletico's own Champions League progression. If they win that game, I would imagine they'd come out the group with us. And you wouldn't want to face them further down the line in the tournament. Sometimes you've got to put things to bed when you get the opportunity. If he's fit, rather than close to it, they've got to play, because as Dan quite rightly says, Rice will sit, but if he's playing against that midfield, he doesn't have to sit. So he'll step forward and engage them in our half. And Souček will play advanced of Rice and will cause problems because he's technically a gifted footballer. And he'll play on the side where Curtis Jones plays if you're looking at the midfield from today. And that, for me, is a concern. You can't change the system. You just can't change the system in a week. You can't do it. It's not possible. This has been drummed into these players with repetitive... The repetitive muscles thing, muscle memory will stop them doing it anyway. You know what I mean? It's one of those situations where it is ingrained to them. This is your job. But I think go back to it. We need to have some perspective on today's performance. We just had no balance. You put Thiago back in that, in a double pivot alongside Henderson, and you put either Jones or Chamberlain in front of them, it looks different. It looks totally different. To go to West Ham without somebody to play defensively alongside Henderson is asking for trouble.
So then, we mentioned them very briefly, and you said it would be a different beast to midweek. Would you not be tempted, I know it's West Ham, would you not be tempted to put Tyler Morton in with Henderson just sitting? No. Wouldn't Henderson get him through the game?
Do you hear what Klopp said? What a great footballer. He needs to get in the gym and get inside the body. Because he's lightweight, he just gets smashed off the ball every time he gets it.
And Rice and Souček.
He's going to be a player. He's got loads of attributes, but mate, it's like a good pan of scouse would kill him right now, mate. He couldn't put him in there. He couldn't put him in there against robust. Declan Rice would eat him alive. So would the Atletico players, and they'll do it with nastiness as well. Mate, that's going to be a toxic game, though.
So I'm going to ask you both a real easy question now. I'm going to come to you first, Dan, because I keep going to Steve first. Who was your man of the match today? And you can't say Basuma. It's got to be someone in red.
Could it be someone in green? Because it was Allison.
Yeah.
And you know what? We touched on it off air, and I brought him up at the time, but I can't be particularly critical of anyone in red today because I don't think anyone was particularly poor. I just think it was that wholly disjointed performance once Keita went off. But nobody stood out either apart from Allison. It was really abject across the board apart from him. So he would have to be the one because, again, by the way, and I keep saying this on a variety of different pods, including my own, he is getting criminally underrated this season. Not by us, not by Liverpool fans, but outside. He is keeping us in games. City first half, Atletico at times, and today he earns us that point. So it's got to be him.
Same to you, Steve. Is it Allison for you? And do you want to embellish a bit more?
Right, I'm going to pretend like I'm 12. What he said.
It's not much else you can say, is it?
No,
So
mate, he's nail on the head. He's had about 4 1-on-1s today, and his choice of when to make the move for the ball is the best I've ever seen in any goalkeeper. He's ridiculous, mate. Even the one at the post, he saved that.
Yeah,
he got fingers on that one.
Post.
He's ridiculously good, mate, and I don't listen. He doesn't fit the Twitter narrative because his name's not Mendy. He doesn't play for Chelsea. I don't care. He's the best goalkeeper in the world, mate. I'll die on this hill fighting that one, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm with you, and I don't think he gets the credit he deserves because he makes saves look easy. He doesn't throw himself 6 foot in the air when he doesn't need to, and he doesn't roll around after he's tipped post round. He just tries to make things look easy. So before we wrap up, we'll have a look forward to the Atletico Madrid game. So, come to you first this time, Steve. Would you go completely full strength to try and get this group done and dusted? Or would you try and give some of them a rest? Did they look tired today?
I don't think they did look tired. I thought they looked disorganised. There's a difference. When you're winning games and not losing games, fatigue doesn't come into the equation. Players play through fatigue when they're winning games. This pandemonium about today exists in Twitter only. They'll be sat in the dressing room going, do you know what, boys? You're not going well there against a very organised side. We know the difficulties we face today. No drama. Go and enjoy your day off tomorrow. We'll see you back in training on Monday. First thing they'll do on Monday is check on the 2 lads in the centre midfield who are injured and see where they're at. It's a storm in a teacup and it exists in social media only, mate. So Wednesday night, Atletico Madrid. There's not a great deal of love between the 2 clubs at the moment, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. That's what European football's about. The fans don't let you go half-arsed on a Wednesday night under the lights in Anfield against a team like Atletico Madrid. They'll go there expecting us to come out and blow them away. And that's the best way to put today's performance behind us, is to come out and do what we do rather than try and manage the situation and be something that we're not. We're very well set up to play against European sides. I don't like what we do, particularly in the final third. There's no reason to change that. Today's a madness. Today's crazy that we ended up with the midfield that we ended up with, but it's no drama in the club. There won't be a big inquest when they go to training about what happened. It is what it is. How do we look forward? Klopp's really good at not dwelling on negativity and building positivity. If you look at Kiev, and then the next season we go and win it. Then you look at 97 points, and what did he do in the summer? He went and said to the players, if you can do that again, we'll win the league. What did they do? They gave him an extra 5% and we got to 99 points. So there's no better manager in world football to sit down with the players and say, do you know what, Saturday, we're really not a problem. It's done, it's finished, it's gone. There's nothing to sit down and analyse. Just had no shape. Even my mum would have been able to tell you that if she'd watched the game today, that we were getting overrun in midfield. There's no shape. So Wednesday night, we go out there, we play well, we beat Atletico Madrid. We hope whoever it is between Porto and Milan that's currently sitting in 3rd place or 2nd in the group, they get a result. So we see Atletico go into the Europa League, because that kind of shithousery and behaviour like that from the manager and the players doesn't belong at the top table of European football. I'm in agreement with Dan. I'd rather see AC Milan and Inter Milan doing well in Europe than that. That's not sportsmanlike conduct. European football's elitist. That's not elitist. That's just poor. They were jokers at their place, mate. Their behaviour was appalling. So no, Wednesday night under the lights, crowd electric. You know, it's a special place, Anfield, on European nights. We could do them a lot of damage, and we should take that opportunity because you wouldn't want to play them again in a quarter or a semi-final.
And would you go full strength on Wednesday night?
Can I say what he said? No, I'm joking. Yeah, I completely agree in terms of I'd love to knock Atletico out. I mean, we wouldn't directly knock them out by beating them, but it'd do them a lot of harm. And I'd love it if they went into the Europa League, if I'm going to channel my inner Kevin Keegan. Just because I don't like him very much and I can't stand playing him. So, yeah, I think we should go full strength, but I'm going to say something here. My full strength would include Tsimikas over Robertson right now. I think Robertson is really... I don't want to say struggling. I feel like that's a little bit harsh, but he has been off the boil now, in my opinion, for a couple of weeks. Today, in particular, he would probably be the one who I was disappointed with most today. He almost, really sort of nitpicking thing, but a couple of times it happened pretty much directly in front of me, so maybe it just so happened that I seen it clearer than most things, but he almost left the ball behind a couple of times, and his touch was off, and he kind of looked like he was just a little bit sluggish, maybe. I don't know. Something wasn't right about him. And I think Tsimikas deserves this sort of platform now. He hasn't put a foot wrong when he's come into the side previously. He started the season, obviously, when Robertson was out with the ankle injury. So I think he deserves this game at least. And yeah, I think if it just... Whether Robertson needs a kick up the arse and that'll do it, I don't know. And I love Andy Robertson, absolutely love him to pieces. Let's have it right. But right now, that's the one actual change, not rotation. That's the one actual change I would make.
Put it on you, Steve. What do you think of them thoughts?
Yeah, listen, whatever Curtis Jones had today, Andy Robertson caught it because I thought both of them didn't do enough when they had the ball. He's right. Andy Robertson's been a bit out of sorts. I think losing Gini Wijnaldum's really affected Robertson's game because when he bombed on, he always knew that all Wijnaldum would do is just sit in the pocket behind him. Yeah. I've said this to you before, Ian. Cast your mind back to last season when Seamus Coleman missed a free header at the back post and the keeper saved it against Everton. From that moment on, Robertson decided to be more defensive-minded because we had frailties in the rest of the team. I don't think he's completely out of that. You need Robertson doing what Trent's doing on the opposite side of the pitch. Yeah. But again, we go back to it. It's a reoccurring theme, and it's like Groundhog Day. You can't do that with the midfield that was there today. So, I think certain players suffered today more than others, and I think Robertson suffered today. But I'm not going to disagree with Dan. He's played pretty much every game for 3 years, and when the defence fell apart last season, we had Phillips and Williams to see us across the line in the last 10 games. Andy Robertson was the most senior defender in the team. And he carried a big burden on his shoulders. So he'll come back. He'll come back, but doesn't do people any harm for them just to have a sit and understand that sometimes it's to reach deep and find some form because this isn't Gareth Southgate managing the Liverpool side. You don't get picked on reputation and what you did 3 years ago. You should be getting picked on form. So Tsimikas probably... He does deserve... a run in the side. I think if we were playing anybody else other than Atletico, it would be a no-brainer. But Andy Robertson has know-how that Tsimikas doesn't have. So it's a difficult one. And if he did drop him and he played Tsimikas, I'd have no problem with that because I've been pleasantly surprised by his form this year.
I think having Robertson in the team against Atletico Madrid is really good because he matches their dark arts. He's got a little bit of Dan in him, Andy Robertson has a little bit of arts in him. And he'll probably give them that back. So I'm going to put you both on the line now before we finish. So, Dan, what's the score going to be on Wednesday night? And who's going to score?
Who's going to score? Okay. Champions League night, under the lights. We'll win 2-1 and goal scorers will be... I assume Griezmann's suspended for them, isn't he?
He is,
Got to
yeah,
be, hasn't he? Yeah.
yeah.
I'll go João Felix for them, but will score through Diogo Jota and Salah will return to scoring ways, and will win 2-1.
And you, Stick, what do you think will happen Wednesday night?
Depends on who's in midfield. If we've not got the midfield we want, it'll be one each. I think Carrasco or whoever plays on the left-hand side of their midfield or up front will get an opportunity. And I think Mane will equalise or score for Liverpool. It's just, we're going to hear this a lot throughout this season. Those games are about the bodies that line up in the centre of the park.
And I think that's a good place to finish. If you've liked
What about you? You need to know what you think.
Nearly got away with that.
Nearly got away with it. I'm gonna go 2-2. I can see a draw, and I think
Desmond 2-2.
I think Griezmann and Felix for Atletico. I think Salah will get 2 for us.
Griezmann's suspended, mate.
Won't be Griezmann.
Can't boot someone in the head and then play next to him.
Can't do that.
Felix, and I think Suarez will score around field and go nuts. I hate it now. After the antics last couple of weeks ago.
Barcelona as well. He was at it when he was with them when they played us. He loved it then.
Yeah, so,
that is the archetype shit house now, isn't it? When he plays for you, you love him and you defend him to the cows come home. As soon as he doesn't play for you, that's Suarez. Never liked him.
Yeah, hate him. Definitely.
And I think 2 from Salah for Liverpool. So yeah, I think that's a good time to finish now before somebody puts me on the spot again and asks me something. So if you've liked what you've seen today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter at Kop'd. And we'll try, and we will do a lot more of these, and we'll see you next time. So thank you very much, Dan. Thank you.
No worries, mate. Nice one.